Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I am Kristen Welker, and we begin once again with the breaking news on the wildfires in California, burning for a fourth straight day. As the death toll climbs, the devastation widens, and local officials face mounting questions about their preparations before and actions during this disaster. These are new images of what's left of the Pacific Palisades, which was decimated by the Palisades fire. Officials say initial reports show 10,000 properties have been damaged or destroyed in the Los Angeles area. Analysts expect this to be the costliest wildfire in U.S. history. We are expecting an update from officials at any moment on the Eaton fire, the second largest wildfire burning right now. And let's go to Pasadena to get the very latest from officials there.
They need to move forward. This morning, we heard from our insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara, regarding what the Department of Insurance is doing to help people as they navigate the insurance coverage that they may or may not have. This is an important thing to note. Ricardo Lara has set up an 800 number, which I'm going to put up on our website. But I want you all to know that we are going to be working diligently with the state to make sure that those that are insured get the financial help they need. I'm also hearing that people, I know yesterday we announced that FEMA has set up a website, and I'm seeing that people are filling out the form and being denied. I'm following up on that to find out what is going on, because it is completely mind-boggling to me that people who have lost everything are filling out a form as told and then are getting an immediate denial. So if you have done that, please, 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 I'm going to try to get an answer within 24 hours to find out what's going on so that you all get the answers you deserve. If you have any questions and that you want answered during the meeting tonight, you can drop the questions in a chat during the live stream or submit them ahead of time via email to 2025.eaton@firenet.gov. Again, 2025.eaton, E-A-T-O-N, at firenet.gov. We've also extended the opportunity to utility companies to participate and answer your questions. I know that's another question we're getting is, when is my power going to come on? When is my gas going to come on? These are questions that we're going to be addressing tonight, so I would encourage you all to participate. And last but not least, and I've said it, and we've got elected town council up in the Altadena area, and I know of at least 4 have lost their homes. These are elected officials that are representing the community, and I want you all to know that they are with us. They'll be there on the virtual call tonight and are very, very, very much a part of the community. And I just want to acknowledge them because it's important for us to recognize that behind every single thing you're seeing on the TV, there are people's lives who have been impacted. And it is not lost on me. So with that, I'm going to introduce now Los Angeles County Fire Department Fire Chief Anthony Maroney to give you an update on the Eaton fire.
So good afternoon. Thank you, Supervisor Barger. The Eaton fire is estimated to be 13,956 acres with 3% containment. We have over 7,000 structures damaged or destroyed and 1,527 firefighting personnel on scene. Yesterday afternoon, the Eaton fire made a run towards historic Mount Wilson. The Mount Wilson Observatory and the telescope are undamaged thanks to the efforts of our firefighters and observatory staff. No buildings or infrastructure have been damaged or destroyed at Mount Wilson. We are appreciative to our many mutual aid and out-of-state fire partners for providing assistance to Los Angeles County in our time of greatest need. The current red flag event that we are under right now will expire at 6 p.m. this evening. However, we do anticipate another red flag event beginning on Monday, and I can assure everybody that LA County will be prepared. Before I close, I would like to thank Board Chair and 5th District Supervisor Catherine Barger for her unwavering support and leadership. I would also like to acknowledge the tireless efforts of all first responders who have put themselves in harm's way to protect residents, and property. And to our residents impacted by this devastating fire siege, please rest assured that we will not stop until the fires are fully contained, and we will continue to be here for you as we plan for the repopulation, recovery, and rebuilding that will be occurring. Thank you. I would now like to introduce Assistant Sheriff Myron Johnson of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department.
Well, good afternoon. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has deployed over 500 sheriff's personnel and still have actively deployed additional personnel to the fires. And that's in addition to our normal patrol staffing functions. Deputies have actively patrolled the evacuated areas and increased their presence in those areas for looting, deterrence, as well as burglary suppression efforts. Overall, the evacuations for the Palisades, Eaton, Hearst, Kenneth, and Lydia fires, evacuation orders approximately 100,053 residents are under evacuation orders, and approximately 57,830 structures remain at risk. Evacuation warnings, approximately 166,800 residents are under evacuation warnings, and approximately 50,837 structures remain at risk. As you heard our sheriff speak about yesterday and this morning, we have a curfew enacted in the affected areas. It's been established in the Palisades and the Eaton fire areas, and it's a mandatory evacuation zones, that will be in effect from 6 p.m. this afternoon until 6 a.m. tomorrow until further notice. This curfew will be strictly enforced and is being taken to enhance public safety, protect property, and prevent looting in areas where residents have been evacuated. We ask that all individuals comply with the curfew and stay clear of the impacted areas unless you're an authorized personnel member, such as a fire representative or an emergency first responder. Anyone found in violation of the curfew will be subject to arrest for a misdemeanor under LA County Code Section 2.68.320, and conviction of that section results in a fine up to $1,000 and jail time. We understand this is an extremely stressful and challenging moment for our residents in this community, but we appreciate the public's cooperation, and we will work together during this crisis. We also have additional assets from the National Guard that are assisting in law enforcement efforts during this catastrophe. We requested the National Guard's assistance yesterday. Several National Guard members arrived last night and were deployed in the Eaton fire area and are assisting with road closures and critical infrastructure protection efforts. As additional National Guard personnel arrive, the Sheriff's Department will strategically coordinate their deployment to both the areas in collaboration with LAPD, Pasadena Police Department, Santa Monica Police Department, Azusa Police Department, and Arcadia Police Department. There continues to be criminal activity in the Eaton area, and we continue to make additional arrests since yesterday, but these numbers are still fluctuating, and we're gathering the information. In total, we have made about 18 arrests between Eaton and the Palisades fire, 15 in Eaton, and then 3 in Palisades. Charges include possession of narcotics, possession of burglary tools, burglary, identity theft, looting. One suspect was on active parole and was also charged with possession of a concealed firearm. Unfortunately, we have confirmed 8 deaths in our jurisdiction, 6 in the Eaton fire area and 2 in the Palisades County area. Our Homicide Bureau is working closely with the LA County Coroner's Office to respond to any deaths that have been reported. Our detectives have started to process certain investigations related to the fire, but they have to wait for access due to the dangerous conditions that still exist, such as downed power lines, leaking gas, and spot fires that are occurring. And just as Chief Maroney indicated, I'd like to acknowledge the hardworking men and women out there on the front line, making sure this community is safe. And this department is dedicated to apply every resource we have to be with you until we can get a handle on this tragic event. And now with that, I'd like to introduce Operations Section Chief Don Fergulia.
Can I take liberty? I just, when I was done, I turned around and my colleague, Supervisor Janice Hahn, is here and would like to say a few words, but I want to publicly thank you, Supervisor Hahn, because I know that you've been working as Metro Chair to help navigate the transportation system as it relates to the impact of these fires. So with that, Supervisor Hahn.
Thank you, Supervisor Barger. I'm here to support you in any way. These fires have not touched the 4th Supervisorial District per se. I'm here supporting you, and thank you for your tremendous leadership on this. I've been touring your communities here in Altadena, and I am, like everyone else,
you are
devastated
listening to officials in California update the public on the very latest on the wildfires that have been burning out of control, including the Eaton fire. Officials with the LA County Fire Department saying so far 13,000 acres in the Eaton fire have been burned. 1,000 personnel have been mobilized, and it is 3% contained after 4 days of burning. Also saying that Mount Wilson, which is where you have some of those satellite signals, that the observatory, the telescope are undamaged and no buildings there were compromised. You also heard officials say the National Guard has been deployed along with thousands of fire officials to try to combat these flames. They also had a very stern warning about looting, urging people not to do it. 18 arrests, 15 for the Eaton fire, 3 for the Palisades fire. Let's check in now with Morgan Chesky, who is in Altadena. Morgan, I know you've been tracking these fires from the very beginning. What's the very latest there where you are?
Yeah, Kristen, an awful lot of heartbreak here in Altadena. We're here. We've been watching the progress of the Eaton fire since Tuesday, and every day has really brought a new challenge in this firefight, both here and at the Palisades fire, which is about 30 miles to the west of us. But as things stand right now, fire crews are on patrol throughout this Altadena community looking for those spot fires, Kristen, that can be caused in some cases by a single ember and create a whole new firefight. The numbers are staggering here. 14,000 acres burned, thousands upon thousands of structures destroyed here in this community, on top of at least 8 lives lost from the Eaton fire alone. And unfortunately, that's couched with the fact that officials say that number will likely go up. We do know that some people in evacuated areas have been told that they can go back to their homes today. That has been the first real sign of any slight return to normalcy, if you could even call it that. But the active firefight is becoming more isolated, and we're not seeing it on definitive fronts that we saw in days past. Again, though, we're essentially standing in more or less of a ghost town. And I should add, of course, we're in front of what was, up until a few days ago, an elementary school. Now it's charred rubble, something that you'll see in almost any direction you look here in certain neighborhoods of Altadena. And I think what's even more unfortunate about that, Kristen, is that this community, not the exception of the rule here.
The images that you continue to show us, Morgan, are just breathtaking and so devastating, and tell the tale of just how unprecedented and enormous these blazes have been in terms of their destruction. I've been watching all of your reports, which have just been really extraordinary. You were with a firefighter, a team yesterday, who acknowledged they were struggling to find water to fight these fires. What have they told you about what they think is contributing to this?
Well, it's a combination of factors, Kristen, and it's a nuanced answer that I think, unfortunately, in the immediate aftermath of these fires, people are looking for a single person or thing to lay blame on. Number one, this is a firefight. This was a firefight that happened simultaneously on 1, 2, 3, 4 fronts. So arguably, officials have said that there is almost not a water system on the planet that could have sustained an ongoing firefight against blazes of this size moving as quickly as they did. That said, you're right. We embedded with the crew yesterday in the Palisades fire 3 days after those flames broke out. And when another spot fire began, we watched them connect the hose to the hydrant. There wasn't enough water pressure to have an offensive attack on that blaze, so they had to move into a defensive position and just try to make sure that no other homes burned down as we all stood and watched yet another structure be destroyed by this fire. So you have the unprecedented demand that certainly impacted it. We do know that there was one reservoir specifically in the Palisades area that was off limits due to ongoing repairs that wasn't used. But again, Kristen, that is couched with the fact that officials have said even if they did have access to that, it would not have made a substantial difference against a firefight of this size when you have winds approaching 100 miles an hour, just tearing the flames from one home to the next here. And I think that's tough. I think it's tough for all of us here witnessing the damage because certainly you don't want something like this to happen again. And the governor has directed an independent review of the water system here, of the fire hydrants, and why they didn't have that necessary pressure. So we'll be waiting and watching to see what comes of that. But again, we are witnessing in real time a generational disaster here. Kristen?
Yeah, really important perspective there and reporting. Morgan Chesky, thank you so much. Please, please stay safe, Morgan. Thank you for bringing that to us. I do want to go now again to Bill Cairns. Bill, you and I have been talking every single day that these fires have been burning. And the big question, of course, is about the winds. We do see a big difference there behind Morgan. They're not whipping winds behind him, but I know that they are not out of the danger zone yet there, are they?
Yeah, not until it rains, and every time it's windy, we're going to get scared. Kristen, during that press conference, the thing that I took away, my eyes went really wide, is when they said with the Eaton fire that we're now over 7,000 structures lost. Before that, we were thinking the number was between 1,000 to 2,000. That number has skyrocketed. And to give you a perspective of why I was like, wow, here's the list in California history, fire history, of the worst fires and the most destruction they've caused by structures. So the Camp Fire is 18,000. That new number we just got with the Eaton fire jumps it up to second all time. It bumps the Palisades fire down, which the latest number we had was a little over 5,000. So combined with these two fires that were only 30 miles apart, they all occurred at the same time during that horrific windstorm. We're now up to about 12, almost 13,000 structures lost with these two. So just give you a perspective of, like, a lot of people were saying, the Palisades fire, it looks like that one was so much worse. All of a sudden now when we hear about the Eaton fire, losing even more structures than the Palisades. So those numbers continue to climb. So let's talk about the forecast now and your question about the winds. Right now, we got a couple gusty spots, 42, 35. But the planes can fly, the helicopters can fly, the super scoopers can get the water and drop it where they need it. So the firefighters have been winning. All the hot spots that have flared up, they've been putting them out. We haven't seen any rapid fire spreads at all. There's still active flames. Most of them are in the mountains in the rural areas, so that's good. As we go throughout tomorrow, though, these winds have increased a little bit in the forecast. Now numerous areas, 30s to 40 mile per hour gusts are possible. Notice these are north of L.A. in some of the areas where we do have these fires. So there could be a little bit of, you may notice more smoke tomorrow afternoon. We could get some flare-ups. Hopefully they'll still have the air tankers out there and get to them. And then by the time we get towards tomorrow afternoon, this is when that critical risk is into Sunday. So they've upped this from an elevated to critical. So we're still seeing these, Kristen, anytime the wind comes up, it's going to be like this. And it does still look like that Monday night into Tuesday morning, that's the next time we're going to be worried about the winds. Right now, we think they could gust up to 40 to 60 miles per hour.
Wow. Well, I know that you're going to continue to track it. We will continue to keep our thoughts with all of the folks there in the hope that they don't get up that strong. Bill, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. With me now is Congressman Ted Lieu, Democrat from California, whose district includes parts of Los Angeles, dealing with these fires. Congressman Lieu, thank you so much for joining me. Our hearts, our thoughts are with you all there in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Kristen. And my heart goes out to all the folks who have been affected by these fires. Well over 12,000 structures have been destroyed. At least 10 people have died. And I personally know a number of people who have lost their homes. I am thankful for the first responders who are working every hour to keep us safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And Congressman, I'm wondering if you can update us on the very latest that you are seeing, that you are hearing as firefighters continue to battle these blazes and tens of thousands still haven't been able to go home yet.
Over 8,000 personnel are involved in fighting these fires at all levels. We've got 991 fire engines, 40 helicopters. So this is a massive effort, but it's very difficult to tame Mother Nature, especially with high winds. And we're going to have some more high winds, not as high as we had before, but they're going to recur over the next few days. So we're not out of this yet. And I'm very thankful for all the first responders, as well as for FEMA that has come in, and people can sign up right now for disaster assistance by going to disasterassistance.gov or downloading the FEMA app.
Do you feel confident, Congressman, that California has the resources right now that it needs to fight these fires?
We have resources that's being helped from other states as well and other parts of California. There's a lot of mutual aid happening. So I want to thank all the first responders, not only from Southern California, but from all of California, as well as states bordering California and even states not bordering California. So this is a massive effort, but these are huge wildfires, and some of them have happened during very high winds, and there is really nothing any of us can do when you have 100-mile-per-hour winds blowing fire embers miles and miles and miles away.
Yeah, there's no doubt this is unprecedented in size and scope and strength, and certainly in terms of the damage that it has wrought. I want to ask you about this water issue. I don't know if you just heard me talking to Morgan Chesky about this. He made a really important point. It's a complicated issue. The fact that, as you say, the winds are blowing 100 miles an hour, it's arguable that nothing could have done a better job at trying to slow these fires. At the same time, we have talked to firefighters who've expressed frustration when they get to a pump and it's out of fire or it doesn't have the right pressure. What is your take on that issue? And what do you think can be potentially improved upon in the future, if anything?
We absolutely should have an investigation of what happened with the water system. Now, at the same time, I think it's also true that no water system was designed to fight so many large simultaneous wildfires. But we do need to have an investigation to see what can be done better in the future. And it's my hope that in the meantime, we're able to get the water pressure to all these different places to continue fighting the fires where they're needed.
And I should say, as we're having this conversation, Governor Gavin Newsom just called for an independent investigation as well into the matter. Let me ask you big picture. Yesterday, we heard President Biden vowing that the federal government will pay for the fire response, 100% of it, he says, over the next 6 months. He's, of course, about to leave office in the next 10 days. Are you confident that that will still happen once this new president, this new Congress gets going?
I sure hope so. And people who have lost their homes are Republicans, they're Democrats, they're non-voters, they're voters, they're all sorts of different people. So Mother Nature doesn't really care what party you're with before she strikes. And this happens all across America with different kinds of natural disasters. And I think what we should do as a federal government is help people who are victims of natural disasters, regardless of where they might live.
You know, Congressman, in the past, President-elect Trump has threatened to withhold aid to California when you were dealing with wildfires. Are you concerned that that could happen again, that history might repeat itself?
I am concerned. I do know that when the president gets inaugurated on January 20th, he doesn't get inaugurated as president of one party. He gets inaugurated as president of the United States of America. That includes all 50 states. And I hope that he honors that commitment to help all 50 states.
And just, Congressman, finally, what is your biggest concern over the next 24, 48 hours?
My biggest concern is that we don't have any more deaths and no more structures that are destroyed. Also, to help people who have evacuated. Folks from my district have evacuated. I visited the Westwood Recreation Center in terms of looking at what they're doing. And I do want to thank the American Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and so many nonprofits who are involved in helping the victims of this disaster. And again, people should sign up right now at disasterassistance.gov to get assistance from FEMA in the short term.
All right, Congressman Ted Lieu, thank you so much for joining us. And again, our thoughts will continue to be with you and your constituents in these coming days and months. Appreciate your joining us.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you. And joining me now is Section Chief Kenichi Haskett of the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Thank you so much for joining us. And we are so sorry for what you and your community are going through right now.
Thank you.
What is the status of your efforts to fight these fires right now?
Currently, today we're taking advantage of, as your weather meteorologist mentioned earlier, the subsiding of the winds, or the winds are manageable in the sense that we can get our aircraft up in the air. Unfortunately, we had to ground Quebec 1. That's one of our most valuable air assets that's able to scoop water from the ocean, instantly turn around and dump it on the fire immediately. Because somebody was illegally flying a drone. So we're pivoting and using the other air assets we have. My understanding is Canada, Quebec loaned us 2 more after that plane has been grounded and it's in for service. My understanding is that they might have to replace the entire wing. So I have to stress the importance of please keeping your drones outside of our TFR. That's a temporary flight restriction area. So the aircraft that you see there does not hit a drone. If it hits a drone or hits an unmanned aircraft, it could land in populated areas under an emergency landing. So please, please, please do not fly your drones in our airspaces. That includes all the fires in Southern California.
Well, it's a really important message, and I hope people hear it. I hope they heed this warning that you are giving. In addition to potentially dealing with drones, what are the other main challenges you're facing as you fight these fires?
Our firefighters are adaptive, resilient. They will work like some of the guys that I talked to yesterday that got off the line. They were on the line at 10:10 on Tuesday morning when they got the 911 call to go to the Palisades, and they came off the line yesterday afternoon. So they were working resiliently. They were working literally their rear ends off to make sure they protect your communities. We need people to give us patience. There are a lot of down power lines. The infrastructure has been destroyed. This wasn't a fire storm. This was a fire disaster, a storm to the extent that has destroyed thousands of homes. And tragically, and my condolences go to those families, just on the Palisades, unfortunately, we've lost 2 lives, which is tragic. And then on the Eden, my understanding is we've lost 6 lives. That is something our firefighters do not want to see. Our number 1 priority is to make sure people get out safe. We have multiple evacuation warnings issued adjacent to the fires that you're seeing here. We need people to understand if you're in a warning, you need to be packed, ready to go if an order is issued immediately. When an order is issued, it doesn't mean it's time to start getting ready to go. It means you get in the car and you go. You have your bag already packed. You have your medications packed. You have your animals and their carriers already in the car. So you just grab everything and you go. That helps save lives. That helps keep people getting injured. And what that does is it keeps firefighters on the front line, protecting your homes and your communities so they don't have to do life rescues. But we will do life rescues, and that's what we did Tuesday night. We did hundreds of life rescues because people were trapped.
Your crews have been working around the clock. I know you're getting help from some neighboring states, but how are your crews holding up?
They're exhausted. That's why we need our firefighters from our mutual aid system to come in and help support us. The crews I mentioned yesterday that were on what I call initial attack, the IA, we're in an extended attack. They were in initial attack for 3 days with the response of the magnitude of fires we had. They're exhausted, so we're very grateful. And we're lucky to have the mutual aid system to bring in firefighters, not just throughout the state of California, but from our adjoining states, as well as firefighters from out of the country as well. So we're very grateful and thankful that they're coming in to help support us.
And of course, there have been all of these questions about the water supply. President Biden said yesterday one of the reasons for the water issues was the utility company cutting power to keep the fire from spreading. We do know power companies have been blamed for previous wildfires in California. Can you help us understand what we should take from this? Is that part of what happened? How do you see the issue?
This was a disaster of a magnitude that the city and the county of Los Angeles have never seen before. I've worked for this department since 1994. I've been in multiple wildland fires with CAL FIRE, rostered as an incident management team, public information officer. I haven't seen the amount of devastation to this magnitude in an urban interface. Usually we're dealing with urban and wildland interface. We're dealing with the city of Los Angeles. This is a city, a populated city. Los Angeles County, one of the most populated counties in the nation. I say that because, to go back to your original question, the water, you put that many resources in that quick of a period of time, pumping over 1,000 gallons of water per minute out of a hydrant, it's going to draw down the system. The capacity of the systems anywhere in the world can't handle the magnitude of the disaster we saw. So firefighters are not going to point blame. We're going to continue to fight the fire. We're going to continue to do what we can and adapt and overcome and keep people safe, get them out and fight this fire with what we have. And if we don't have what we have or what we need or creature comforts, like a fire hydrant at full capacity, we will adapt and overcome and get this fire out.
All right, Chief Haskett, thank you. Hackett, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your insights, and please continue to stay safe. We really appreciate it. Our thoughts are with you and your community. Thank you. And coming up, we are following the wildfire emergency closely, and we'll bring you any major updates on the crisis straight ahead. But first, an historic scene in Lower Manhattan today where President-elect Trump was officially sentenced in his criminal hush money case. The reaction and the fallout is next. Stay with us. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. Just over a week from now, for the first time in American history, a president will enter the Oval Office as a convicted felon. Judge Juan Merchan handed down the sentence of an unconditional discharge in President-elect Trump's Manhattan hush money case, where he was found guilty on 34 counts of falsification of business records. So what does that mean? Well, that means the conviction stands without any further punishment. From the bench, Juan Merchan noted the peculiarity of the case and said this penalty would not have been available to someone who was not about to assume the presidency.
Never before has this court been presented with such a unique and remarkable set of circumstances. Donald Trump, the ordinary citizen, Donald Trump, the criminal defendant, would not be entitled to such considerable protections. The only lawful sentence that permits entry of a judgment of conviction without encroaching upon the highest office in the land is an unconditional discharge.
And speaking remotely at the hearing, Mr. Trump once again railed against the case.
It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. I just want to say I think it's an embarrassment to New York, and New York has a lot of problems, but this is a great embarrassment. It's been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to exclaim that I was treated very, very unfairly.
Joining me now is my NBC News colleague, Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, thanks so much for being here. So talk to me about how the president-elect is responding to this unconditional discharge, which, again, does not carry any weight with it. I mean, to some extent, it's symbolic, right?
Right. In some ways, today he's been celebrating it as effectively a victory, suggesting that having no prison time or probation or fine attached to this guilty verdict amounts to a victory and a suggestion that the case should have never been even brought against him in the first place. On social media, upon leaving the courthouse, or virtually leaving the courthouse, he was transmitted into the Lower Manhattan room there via his Mar-a-Lago estate next to Todd Blanche, one of his attorneys who you see there in front of those American flags. But in that social media post, he wrote in part, after spending tens of millions of dollars, wasting over 6 years of obsessive work that should have been spent on protecting New Yorkers from violent, rampant crime that is destroying the city and state, I was given an unconditional discharge. That result alone proves that, as all legal scholars and experts have said, there is no case. There was never a case, and this whole scam fully deserves to be dismissed. Now, obviously, Kristen, he has the opportunity to appeal this, and he has indicated that he will take this to the New York Appellate Division. To be clear, a unanimous jury back in May found him guilty on these 34 felony counts. But for the president-elect, he is now 10 days away from inauguration, and he will officially be entering the White House as a convicted felon now.
And Vaughn, just to follow up with you on that point, I'm curious, what do you think the implications of this sentencing are, if any? He's been quite clear of what his agenda is. He wants to focus on mass deportation. He wants to focus on extending the 2017 Trump-era tax cuts. Does this cloud the first 100 days, for example? Does it have any practical impact?
I think practical impact, most likely not. He has indicated that he will appeal this, which would mean that appeal process would take place during the course of his presidency, that his top two attorneys on this case, Emil Bove, is going to be going to the DOJ as the number 3 office holder in the agency, and Todd Blanche, will be the number 2 in the DOJ. So he loses really his top 2 attorneys that defended him on this case to their roles in the Department of Justice. But at the same time, I think for the president-elect, this case does mean something for not only the incoming President Trump, but also for future presidents. And that is after the Supreme Court's immunity decision this summer, when they said official acts of the president were protected. This is a New York court that ultimately found Donald Trump guilty of a crime and sentenced him despite that immunity ruling, suggesting that the actions he took in 2017 and 2018, when he falsified those business records, signed those checks through Michael Cohen to reimburse him for the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election, that just because he was in the White House at the time doesn't mean that those were protected acts and that they were, in fact, crimes. And he's now been sentenced. Again, he has the opportunity to appeal this, and he wants to make the argument that he was, in fact, because of some of the evidence presented, protected by the Supreme Court's immunity decision. But for now, the courts in New York have made the determination that he was not protected.
All right, Vaughn Hildyard covering all the angles for us, as always. Happy Friday to you, Vaughn.
Thanks,
Great to see you. Thanks so much. And we'll dig deeper into the political fallout of today's sentencing and the political fight for developing over the California wildfires after the break. You're watching With the Press Now. Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier, California Governor Gavin Newsom moments ago said he is calling for an independent investigation into the loss of water pressure at local fire hydrants, as local officials have grown increasingly frustrated with the lack of resources to fight these historic fires. Joining me now on set is Kevin Fry, Washington correspondent for New York One. Simone Sanders Townsend, former senior advisor to President Biden and Vice President Harris. She's also co-host of The Weekends on MSNBC, and Stephen Hayes, editor and CEO of The Dispatch. He's also an NBC News political analyst. Thanks to all of you for being here. Kevin, let me start with you and what we've been talking about throughout the hour, these horrific fires that are burning in Los Angeles, the politics of the disaster response. We know that President-elect Trump has consistently been targeting Governor Newsom. One of his latest posts says, one of the best and most beautiful parts of the United States of America is burning down to the ground. It's ashes, and Gavin, and he distorts his name, should resign. This is all his fault. Yeah. Talk about, this is obviously a leadership test for Newsom, but it could also be a test for President-elect Trump and how he handles it.
Yeah, I believe the word is Newscom that he's using to describe Gavin Newsom. I mean, this is a continuation from the last go-around of the Trump White House in terms of their relationship and their tit for tat. And we have seen, I believe there was some great reporting in Politico, for example, the one time that apparently Trump was convinced to actually send aid, I believe it was 2018 or so, because he was told there are Republicans on the ground. This is, at least for the moment, re-exposing this idea of a real transactional relationship when it comes to something that usually, traditionally, has been relatively above politics. There have been sprinkles of it, certainly. Look at Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina. Think of Hurricane Sandy in the Northeast. But generally speaking, there is an effort by politicians to try to look strong and cooperative in these sort of natural disasters. And so far, it seems Trump is going to be returning to at least his model from the last go-around, which is more transactional and political.
It's a really important point. I mean, Stephen, pick up on that because, again, this is a test for President-elect Trump. He's 10 days away from being sworn into office. The fires are still burning. People are displaced. We're still counting the death toll, and he's pointing fingers. Could this, in fact, backfire on him?
I mean, it depends who you're talking about, right? Certainly not with the MAGA base, right?
Yeah,
I think this is what they're looking for. They want this. They want President Trump on the attack. This is who President Trump is in certain senses, as Kevin points out. But I think there's a bigger story here, too. This is this new media moment that we're in. It's not really about, hey, let's find out what happened and then carefully look to see who deserves blame. It's let's race forward and assign blame. And both sides are doing this, by the way. Let's race forward and assign blame and pretend that we know everything that's happened here so that we can either get more engagement on social media or win a political battle or win the moment. And it's just unhelpful for everybody in terms of figuring out what actually has happened.
And what becomes complicated, is that there's a little kernel of truth sometimes in some of these claims, and then that explodes and you lose sight of what's actually happening.
Like the fact that there was no water when I agree that this is media moment, people are rushing, but I don't agree that it's both sides. I mean, I really, the owner of the LA Times spread misinformation, and then it was particularly about that there was no water, and I think it was really about trying to blame the mayor. There's a Democratic mayor in Los Angeles, Karen Bass, former congresswoman, and talk about the kernel of truth. She was literally in Ghana while these wildfires were raging, was not on the ground. I do think that she needs to come out forcefully with an explanation to the people of Los Angeles for that. But then on the back end, the same publisher and others, again, this was primarily MAGA individuals were spreading the lie about the fire budget, saying that the fire budget was reduced by $23 million, when in all actuality, after doing actual reporting, the budget was increased $50 million, actually. So I think it is important that everyone wants to be right on this and accurate. And it is unfortunate that the president-elect doesn't necessarily share that, because it's not who he is. His first thing isn't about what's right. It's about what do I think.
Simone, what about the leadership test for Governor Gavin Newsom? He is someone who has been talked about a lot in terms of 2028. There's no doubt that if he does, in fact, decide to move forward with that, voters will be looking at this moment.
I mean, probably one of the reasons that the water pressure is now going to be investigated, because it is a real question. Why was the water pressure not working? But also, who will people blame for that? Some of that blame is going to go to L.A. Mayor Karen Bass and the city. Some of that blame could eventually seek to Gavin Newsom. And I think the people of Los Angeles, the people in L.A. County, they do deserve some explanations. I think we have to see how the entirety of this all plays out. We have yet to see Governor Newsom and the president-elect, soon to be President Trump, come face to face. In 10 days, he's going to be dealing with Donald Trump, not Joe Biden. That's who he will have to be on the phone calling. And I would lastly just say that there was a viral video of a woman that walked up to him while she had watched her house burn. And he's like, I'm trying to get the president on the phone right now. And she is rightfully just hysterical. And she's like, let me monitor the phone call. Let me talk. Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? That is, I think, one of the many manifestations of how people are feeling in California at this moment.
And it's moments like that, which I didn't think he handled very well at all.
I thought it was a little brush-offish.
Yeah, he didn't even ask about this woman's daughter. You could see that she was so frustrated, and he gave sort of perfunctory answers and kept pointing at his phone. I think moments like that, in some ways, are going to matter more to his political future than what we determine about the actual policy
Look at us
decisions.
agreeing.
I'm agreeing.
Wait, it's scary moment.
Kevin, they agree, and it's remarkable. Kevin, let me shift gears a little bit here and talk about what we were just discussing with Vaughn Hilliard, which is this quote-unquote sentencing that occurred in New York today. There's no prison time. There's no penalty, no fee that is going to be paid. And to some extent, President-elect Trump says he is going to appeal this, but to some extent, it's being viewed as symbolic. What do you think the implications are today of President-elect Trump now becoming officially a convicted felon?
I mean, it certainly gives Democrats something to harp about when they're on the Hill. I'm not sure that it's going to do much in terms of resonance, just because of the fact that he was elected and people knew all these facts to begin with, and they still voted for him anyway. On top of that, though, it does feed in for Republicans to this narrative of he is a victim, he has been attacked. And so you've already seen Speaker Johnson, some of the Republicans in New York who are trying to find ways to accuse the DA of not being focused on crime. It's giving them fodder to kind of build off of that.
Stephen, we've seen him time and time again use these moments, use these political battles to rally people around him. He did it throughout the primaries, and it's arguably one of the things that helped him defeat his primary rivals so handily.
Look at the statement that he put out, right? I mean, he frames this almost as an exoneration when it's a conviction. I mean, it's just the way that he makes the argument. I think if you're looking at sort of how Donald Trump sees this, he's now seen that this is over. This was his very best case to use to say that there was lawfare. I mean, it was a triple bank shot. It was flimsy from the beginning. He can say, look, they just came after me. And you had, of course, public statements from the people who came after him suggesting in advance that they were going to come after him. This is his strongest case. I think he's happy to try to capitalize it to make a bigger argument about lawfare. but it's all in the past now.
And the other thing that's extraordinary is, I mean, this is like a perfect storm. Over the course of the last year, we had all of these cases stacked up, and then the Supreme Court did not move very expeditiously. Arguments that the DOJ didn't act soon enough with the indictments to begin with. The fact that we have seen, among other things, the stalls when it comes to the actual conviction. I mean, this was just like a compilation of a perfect storm for Trump to get out of these various cases.
Simone, final point.
Well, today, I mean, I appreciated that you used sentencing, air quotes, when you said it, because that's how I felt about the whole performative, if you will, of doing what the government does. This is a really good example of the system doing what the system says it should do, and like this is what precedent and all the things say. But the people don't see that. The people say, you said he's a convicted felon, yet I see he's running for president, got elected. Yeah. If anyone else in Donald Trump's position, they would be in jail right now, or at least would have gotten a real sentencing, and they wouldn't be able to get a clearance in the White House. So I hope he becomes an advocate for people who have been convicted of felonies. Remove that box out of here, okay? Get these people clearances. Give them jobs in the White House.
There you go. We'll have to see if that happens in his second term. Simone, Stephen, and Kevin, thanks for a great conversation. We really appreciate it. Coming up after the break, the clock is ticking for TikTok. What we heard from the Supreme Court justices and the social media companies' lawyers in today's high-stakes arguments as the Chinese-owned company faces a potential ban in the U.S. before Mr. Trump takes office. Stay with us. You're watching Meet the Press Now. Welcome back. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments today on the fate of TikTok. With less than 10 days until the ban on the popular social media app goes into effect unless it divests from its Chinese parent company, ByteDance. Now, lawyers for TikTok and for a group of content creators argued the law passed by Congress is a violation of their First Amendment rights.
TikTok, Your Honor, uses an algorithm that, in its view, reflects the best mix of content. What the act does is it says TikTok cannot do that unless ByteDance executes a qualified divestiture. That's a direct burden on TikTok speech.
Under the First Amendment, mere ideas do not constitute a national security threat. Restricting speech because it might sow doubt about our leaders or undermine democracy are kind of things our enemies do. It is not what we do in this country.
Now, the U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar argued that TikTok is a major national security threat due to the potential ability of China to use it for covert purposes. The deadline of the ban also falls one day before President-elect Trump takes office. Remember, Trump, who tried to ban TikTok during his first term, has reversed course and is now promising to, quote, save the social media company. NBC News correspondent Savannah Sellers joins me now on set. Savannah, it's great to see you.
It's so good to see you on your gorgeous set.
Yes,
thanks for bringing me in from the cold,
Thanks
too.
for being here. We're thrilled to have you. Talk to me about what we heard today. Did the justices seem convinced by the argument that TikTok should be saved?
In short, no. And that did seem pretty clear. If I am TikTok right now, I am pretty worried about what just happened today. And it's actually exactly what you just said in the question there that I think could be really revealing and really concerning for TikTok, which is they are not convinced that this is a freedom of speech argument. At one point, Justice Jackson, she even essentially said, I'm not understanding how this is a freedom of speech question rather than a question of your ability to associate with a foreign entity. And the reason that that's so telling is because it takes a lot, right, for the government to decide, hey, we are going to do something, even if it might infringe upon free speech. And if the justices are kind of saying, I don't buy that argument, that's bad news for TikTok.
Yeah, and it comes as President-elect Trump, as I just said, has really reversed course. He initially wanted to ban it, and then during the campaign, he had a lot of advisors who said, hey, wait a minute, this is something that politically speaking might not be the best move. Now he's come out and said he wants to save it. How might that potentially loom over this?
Yes. Okay. Great question. And there are a couple complicated, but let me walk you through them options. So the first one is, could Trump essentially extend the amount of time that TikTok has to divest? So basically for ByteDance to sell, because they've said, look, we basically can't sell. It's going to be so complicated. We can't find the same type of engineers. The court today also challenged that, saying, so is it impossible or it would just take longer? So maybe Trump could extend that timeline. The really big thing, though, that we're thinking could potentially happen is, let's say the law goes into effect on January 19th. The next day, Trump is now President Trump. he could essentially decide to not enforce it. What that means is he tells his attorney general, don't get people in trouble for this. But then what that really goes to, because who this app is targeting is Apple for having it in their app store, is Oracle for having the servers that host the technology. So the question is, if you're the general counsel of Apple or of Oracle, are you going to say, okay, Trump's word is enough. We're going to go ahead and keep this here. You might tell your companies, no, we have to follow the law because it's not permanent reassurance.
Well, we have about 30 seconds left, but Savannah, I know you can't crawl inside the justices' minds, but how urgent, how quickly do you think we're going to get a final decision here?
That's a really good question. We don't know on that. I would say, if I'm reading tea leaves, it seemed like they knew how they felt about this already. The other thing, though, that we could hear about sooner, they could decide to put a pause on the ban if they do want to continue to decide. So we might hear soon that they issue a yes on that injunction, and they say, hey, this won't go into effect on the 19th. We're not saying it's not going to go into effect. We're just saying we need more time. That's something we could hear pretty soon.
Savannah Sellers, great to see you.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
As always. Thank you so much. Before we go, I want to take a moment to celebrate my friend and longtime colleague, Hoda Kotb, who officially signed off as Today's Show co-host this morning after 17 years on the show and 26 amazing years at NBC. While Hoda will be deeply missed by her NBC News family, I'm happy for her and her family. Can't wait to see what her next chapter brings. And of course, she's not going far. She will still be contributing to Today's Show and NBC News. And we wish the very best to Craig. And now for another very special announcement, we want to say a very hearty congratulations to our beloved Meet the Press Show Now segment producer, Allie, and her husband, Lane. They are welcoming a baby boy into the world. Little Miles was born on Monday, January 6th, weighing an adorable 6 pounds and 12 ounces. I think I speak for the entire Meet the Press family when I say we cannot wait to meet baby Miles. We can't wait to hold him. He is perfect. We're just thrilled for Allie and her growing family, and we're sending them all of the love during this incredibly special time. We will be back on Monday with more Meet the Press Now, and if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press on your local NBC News station. I'll have exclusive interviews with Senators Alex Padilla and James Lankford, plus my one-on-one interview with poet Amanda Gorman as part of our Meet the Moment series. Don't miss it. The news continues with Tom Costello in for Hallie Jackson right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.